This is a DBQ SOS response. So a few of you have mentioned that you're struggling with what exactly to do here. So my hope is to kind of record a quick overview and kind of walk you through it step by step, kind of point you in the direction, not do this thing for you, but at least narrow down the focus so that instead of this monstrous DBQ that seems super long, it actually is a little bit smaller. So the first thing we want to take care of is what is the argument? What's the purpose of this? And so the purpose of the thing today, of the DBQ, is to analyze the major principles and values of fascism. Okay, so what is it that fascism values? Well, what even is fascism? So we check out the notes. It's a belief marked by social economic control, a strong centralized government, and fanatical nationalism. So basically, it's a government system in which they believe firmly in control. So it's a bit of a dictatorship, right? They control all economic aspects and social aspects. So how you run your everyday life, how you make your money, all that stuff is controlled by the government. That's the strong centralized government, so that you're isolating power, holding power in the hands of a single person, and they're fanatically nationalist. So they are crazy nationalist. They love their country to the extreme. So that's kind of what that is. And then there's other aspects of it. These group of ideas. These are again values and beliefs, ideas, things that fascism holds dear. The state is supreme, meaning the state is the most important thing. Your value is based on what you can do for the state. War being a part of life. The idea here is that struggle is good. Struggle makes us tougher, stronger, smarter, faster. So you need to embrace war. You need to embrace conflict, embrace the struggle, and you'll become better for it. They're big fans of uniform and color codes. The uniform and color codes are part of that kind of militaristic aspect. War is a part of life, so they're very militant, which kind of makes a lot of sense. But it also reinforces that sense of your importance, your role is as one of many. It's like when you're on a team, if you're a baseball player, football player, field hockey player, like you have a uniform and your role on the team is one of a team. And the uniform reminds you of your role in that team. So it's not that you are important, but it's the team is important. And what you do to help the team is what's important. So it's a little bit different, but the uniforms reinforce that, right? And to the same degree, so do rituals of state. So the idea of like this mass book burning or giant rallies that will be held, it reinforces that sense of like team unity. So if you're playing a sports team and you do like a pasta party, or if you have theater guild and you have like a whatever it's called, the party after all is said and done, the idea is that you've got that kind of bonding is going on, and rituals of state kind of promote that bonding. They tie the group together, and then it's usually composed of middle war veterans, industrialists, lower middle classes. War veterans would like it from simplistic way. War veterans would like it because war is a part of life. It's got the uniform, so it's militaristic, and so if people are familiar with the military, they're going to appreciate it. Industrialists will like it because they're going to be making money off this. I mean, this is a system where you are making money preparing the country for war. So if you make tanks, planes, guns, bombs, missiles, you'll make money because the government's going to be buying your stuff. And then finally, lower middle classes are going to appreciate that because it elevates them. Right? The idea is that the lower middle classes are elevated. It doesn't matter your social class. You are brought to the same level. You're all so, so important. So you being rich, being poor, being middle class is irrelevant because you're all part of the team. So that's why the lower middle classes like it, because they're artificially raised up to the upper class. So those are our values. Those are our beliefs. And so for our DBQ, we're going to be talking about some of these things in our first body paragraph. Because in the first body paragraph, we're analyzing the major principles and values of fascism. So if we're struggling and we're not really sure how to approach this, what I'd encourage you to do first, if you haven't taken a look at the documents, if you haven't summarized them or analyzed them, I would do that. And you can look at the other YouTube video for that. But when you're here and you figure out, okay, what are the values? What are the core principles and values of fascism? Well, it's that whole bunch we just listed there. So there's a whole lot. And you can go into the documents and start figuring out, okay, which documents kind of back up these ones here. So if we take a look at our first document, we say, okay, document number 1 by Benito Mussolini. I've analyzed it. We did this one in class. This one is on YouTube. So I'm just going to kind of jump around. And if you're not sure where I'm going, again, click the other video. The first paragraph, fascism believes neither in the possibility nor the utility of perpetual peace. So fascism doesn't believe that peace forever, which is perpetual, is possible or useful. So they don't believe in peace. Well, if you don't believe in peace, doesn't that sound an awful lot like war is a part of life, that struggle is real? Like, doesn't that kind of make sense? So if I go back to this, I say, all right, well, my first value is going to be struggle or slash war is a part of life. And then I would say, what documents support that? Document number one, for sure. So I have document one squared away. I can use the quote that's in bold there, or heck, I can even use the quote here, right? War alone brings up its highest tension, all human energy, and puts a stamp of ability upon the people who have the courage to meet it. So that is a good document that supports our concept that war is useful, war is worthwhile. If we scroll down here a little bit too, down to number two, document number two, we skip down here a little bit. He talks about how the conception of internationalism, democracy, which entire organization acknowledges only principles of responsibility, command, and obedience. Where are we? Today, the movement cannot be destroyed. So they're talking about fascism. It is there. People must reckon with it, whether they like it or not. For here they see before them an organization inspired to the highest degree by national sentiment. So that's their fanatical nationalism. So I could tie this to fanatical nationalism if I wanted to. So that's a possibility. But I want to keep going here because I do like where they keep saying the solitary party, which amongst its members have completely overcome not only the conception of internationalism, but also the idea of democracy, which in its entire organization acknowledges the only principles of responsibility, command, and obedience. So that's another good aspect, right? So that's the militant aspect. But the part that I love, here's an organization which is filled with an indomitable, aggressive spirit. An organization which, when the political opponent says your behavior we regard as a provocation, basically when your political opponent says you're starting a fight, we say we'll fight today, tomorrow, and so forth and so on. So this idea, when he says here's an organization, we're talking about the Nazis, the fascist party. It's an organization in which they have an aggressive spirit that when people say, those are fighting words, we respond, we fight today, we fight tomorrow. So I would put document two here as well, saying that struggle is a part of life. Struggle is a core value. And we see that in document one, we see it in document two. So I've got two documents now that I can reference that war is a struggle or a part of life. So I've got that. Let's move on to let's move on to another one. Let's see if we can find nationalism. We know that fanatical nationalism is a part of fascist ideology. We've seen it here, right? Status supreme, where is it? Fanatic nationalism. So we know that's a core belief or value. Now we just have to find some documents to back it up because I think there might be a document in here. So we go looking for and hunting for nationalism, fanatical nationalism, crazy nationalism. So that one's more about purpose, but could work. We'll keep going here. I'm thinking of a specific aspect, and I was hoping it would be the one not spontaneous. Aha! The audience was breathlessly under a spell. This man expressed their thoughts, their feelings, their hopes. A new prophet had arisen. This is obviously someone talking about Adolf Hitler and the way they looked at it. Every word he said was true. They'd won the war, been deprived of the reward for their heroism by a number of traitors, had suffered incessantly ever since, been enslaved, suppressed, exploited. But the day had arrived when they would be free and revenge themselves. So I think you can kind of put up this sense of fanatical nationalism. I would connect it in the sense that the Germans I feel like they're owed this because they are the best. They are fantastic. They are awesome. They are amazing. And so you can kind of feed into that fanatical nationalism. And I think you can have some outside information there as well to kind of lead into it. But I think you can make a case that this would be fanatically nationalistic. You could also make the case if you really wanted to. War is a struggle part of war is struggle. Life is struggle. War is a part of life. You could probably do that one too, right? Because he talks about how they had won the war, been deprived, but the days arrived when they would be free and revenge themselves. So even then, they're talking about revenge and fighting back. So you could even say, document 7 for this one too. So you've got your documents here, right? So let's forget what I had done before. Let's just say we're going to do that one value. We're going to write a whole paragraph on this. Now, our outside information that we can use is anything from class that would help understand why fascists like the struggle. They like the idea. So if we're going to talk about maybe social Darwinism, talk about the survival of the fittest could be part of it. You could talk about their racist beliefs. and how they view eugenics as being a legit aspect of their society. I mean, these are things you can mention. You can mention making that. Sorry, I'm typing while I'm talking, and it's never a good idea. You can talk about how war is a struggle, and they're struggling against those that don't belong, and reference blood and soil nationalism. So there's a whole bunch of stuff that you can tie in via outside information. So all that would be fine. Now, the second part of the DBQ is all the way at the top. Why? Describe its appeal to the Italians and the Germans during the interwar years. So why did the Germans and Italians like it? Now, I'll be honest with you. You don't need to talk about the Italians at all. You really don't. The Germans are the focus here. So if you want to leave the Italians out, you can. Why? Why are the Germans liking fascism so much? And there are some connections here. So if we go to document number 4, is one that I like, and I think it makes a lot of sense. And an almost unbroken chain of homeless men extends the whole length of the great Hamburg-Berlin highway. Some of them were carpenter, bricklayer, all that kind of stuff. These are people who don't have jobs, right? There's no repulsive disease of which traces are not seen here. There's no form of mutilation, of degeneracy that is not represented. Naked bodies of old men in a disgusting state of decline. So basically, Germany's in a brutal state, and their economy has collapsed. Their economy has absolutely collapsed. So the question is, why would fascism appeal to the Germans into war years? Because it gives them, we're going to call it economic hope. Economic hope. And to do this, we're going to look at document 4 and document 11. Document 4 is the one we just saw with the homeless folks, right? So the idea is that these people are in desperate states, dire states. The people of Germany are, many of them are homeless, destitute, broken down. They're having a really, really hard time. And if we look at document 11, you can kind of flip it around and say, this is what fascism does. So this is Germany right here. And if you take a look, fascists really come to power in the beginning of 1933, 1934. And look what happens to the unemployment rate. It goes from 25% to 14 to 11 to 8 to 4 to 2. Fascism gives people jobs. In the United States, meanwhile, it goes from 24, 21, 20, 16, 14. It does kind of go down, and then it goes back up to 19 in 1938. So fascism is going to give people a job. So when we say, why would the fascism appeal to the Germans in the interwar years? Because it gives them a job. It gives them jobs preparing Germany for the next fight, for that struggle, right? Our value is war is part of life. Struggle is real. Well, how do you prepare for that struggle? How do you prepare for war on a national level? You build guns, you build tanks, you build fortresses, you build defenses, and you build offensive weapons. And that's what they have jobs doing. And with document 4 and 11, you basically make the case of, well, we know the Germans were destitute and they were homeless. They were really struggling. And document 4 makes it abundantly clear how difficult a time they were having, that the Germans were having. And then fascism comes along and promised them jobs, building the guns, the tanks, the planes, all that stuff to, fight the fight, fight the war that they feel like is going to come, is happening either way. And then they see that unemployment decreases as the years go on. So while Nazism might not have been super popular in 1933 when they first really take control, right? So when Hitler becomes the leader of Germany, he might not have had uniform support. They might not have been as liked. As time goes on and more people and more people and more people are getting jobs, it is furthering, like, supporting the Nazis. They're going to turn and support the Nazis as more economic opportunities are presented to these people. So you make the case of Germany was in difficult economic situations. The Nazis come to power and people get jobs building the weapons for the war tomorrow. And that's why it appeals to them. The jobs, the economic benefit appeals to them. It is a solution. And you can even point out, as we mentioned by looking at the documents, that, when you look at how Great Britain or how America are doing under democracy, like, it's not doing great. Comparatively speaking, it is significantly better to be a fascist, or even Japan, which is militarist, society or government, than it is a democracy at this time, if you're talking about economic values. So that's where you can put there. So you got 3 documents for war, struggle, part of life. You've got 2 documents for why it might appeal to the Germans. There's a whole bunch of others you can point out here as to why it might appeal to the Germans. There are so many. Um, this one right here talks about how parliamentary democracy of ruin has all times destroyed people and states. It does not express the will of the people. It serves only ambition and interest. He goes on and on and on about how democracy is terrible, right? The effect of this kind of government, which Hitler's talking about, is democracy is awful, is bad. It's weakened the country, so forth and so on. And you could even use document 10 in this, right? Talk about how Germany is a democracy with the Weimar Republic, how Hitler says it's weakened the country, how it's weakened the state, document 10, how economic conditions are terrible, drop in some outside information, maybe mention hyperinflation, mention they're blamed for the war, mention they have to pay for the war. So document 4, how terrible things are. And then you go right to document 11 and how fascism continues to provide jobs for people, which is going to get their loyalty, even if they didn't have it from the jump, from the very beginning. You can do this over and over and over. I hope this makes some level of sense, because once you got this down, the rest of it will be pretty easy. As far as specific factual outside information, speak correctly, Mr. Wiggin. You can mention things like hyperinflation. You can mention things like the Great Depression. Remember, you only need 2 facts per body paragraph. So mention hyperinflation, the Great Depression, the stock market crash. Mention that the Germans have to pay for the World War I because the Treaty of Versailles, right? They get blamed for it and they have to pay for it. So there's all this stuff that you can mention that really counts as outside information. I'm only looking for 2 things that are not in the documents. So show me how you can bring some of that stuff in. And then let's quickly, hopefully in 5 minutes or less, go through how this thing is going to look. Introductory paragraph. What do you do? This is going to be the what, the when, the where, the why, the how. That's all this stuff is. So in your first, call it 2 or 3 sentences, what are you going to tell me? You're going to tell me when this thing is happening. Well, it's going to be between 1919 and 1939, aka the interwar years. So we know this. Wow, my typing is terrible. I am so sorry. So you know when it's happening. What are we talking about? Fascism and its appeal in particular. Let's get into I didn't talk about where. Where is Germany in particular? If you want to label Europe as well, that's fine. So for context for the introductory paragraph, you're just telling me, from 1919 to 1939, Germans increasingly searched for a new form of government to fix the uncertainty of the past. They were angry about losing World War One and having to pay for it. They're upset about it, and as a result, they're looking for a way to restore their greatness and their prestige. Then you mention what fascism is. Fascism is a government ideology that is marked by strong social and economic control, a strong centralized government, and fanatical nationalism. And that's all that is. And then for the thesis, and the thesis goes right after it. Thesis, so you'd say like fascism, if I could, wow, I cannot. Fascism's core values of, insert your core value here, or core values, appeal to the Germans because, that's pretty much it. And you can say during the interwar years, appeal to the Germans during the interwar years because, that's all you really need for a thesis right there. Now, if you want to get really fancy, if you want to really impress me, you could put a statement before it that recognizes the complexity of the issue. Although fascism was not fascism and communism were both created after World War One, fascism's core values of blank appeal to the Germans during the interwar years because whatever. So you can mention that fascism and communism were both brand new items. You can mention that fascism may have had some detractors. It ostracized some people. It certainly was really anti-Semitic in Germany, obviously. So you've got a couple options that you can go to. And then when you get to your body paragraphs, it's the same thing again. fascism's core values of blank, blank and blank. Whoa, here we go. So you say like fascism's core values of fanatical nationalism and strongly centralized governments made it a popular choice in Germany during the interwar years. But then you get the first paragraph, you're just getting into what the core values are. So you're answering the question of why did fascism hold these core values? So why did they view war as a part of life? Why was the struggle so important to them? Well, we know this, right? They believe the struggle made you stronger, it made you better. They're social Darwinists. They want to be the best version of themselves. They detest weakness. They don't like democracy. They view it as weak. They like strong action. It's in their mind better to be strong and wrong than meek and right. So that's what you're talking about. You're telling me about what are these core values, why they have them, how do they view the world. And then for your second body paragraph, this is where you say fascism appealed to the Germans because, and then you get into it. So for our example that we filled out for this one, fascism appealed to the Germans because it provided them economic hope after World War One. That is by no means the only answer. You can go with because it promised to restore German greatness. It promised to restore German pride. It promised them revenge. It gave them purpose. Hell, one of the documents talks about restoring masculinity. So you can get into that there in your second body paragraph. And just like the first one, just break it down into simple steps. Your topic sentence, right? So just like we saw up here, just give us a basic topic sentence. Fascism's core values of blank and blank made it popular during this time. Explain it a little bit. Fascism liked the idea that war was necessary. They liked the idea that it was a struggle because it made you stronger, it made you tougher, it made you better. These documents prove what I'm just saying. Document 1 proves what I just said, because here's my analysis of it. Benito Mussolini said it, so I know for a fact that it's got to be accurate because he's the guy who created fascism. Document 2 and Document 7 also make this case. They also argue it. I know, Riley. Riley, my dog, is whining. I'm taking too long, so forgive us. The point is, you talk about that stuff, right? That's the idea. You mention it. Explain how these documents prove those sentences that come after the topic sentence, in which you just explain, "Hey, this is what fascists were all about, man. This is what they believed in," and that's really what it comes down to. You do the same thing for the appeal of fascism, and then for the conclusion's super simple, right? If we get all the way down there, rephrase your thesis statement, recognize the complexity of the issue, and then talk about how this led to some catastrophic things, right? That because of fascism's appeal and in fact people supporting fascism, it led to some horrific stuff during World War II, like the Holocaust, like concentration camps. How about it just led to World War II in general? So that's really what you're talking about. That's how you tackle it. That's what you need to do. I hope this walkthrough helps. I hope that this combined with the document analysis YouTube video kind of puts the pieces together for those of you that are struggling. And if you have questions, shoot me an email. I will get back to you, and then we'll go from there.